Hey everybody, thanks for coming today and checking my video out. I really appreciate that. So glad you're here. Let's get right into this lesson, which today is called Tritone Magic. I think at this point I should title the videos before I start the hit the recording, but that's what I think it's you'll see it's mostly about the magic of tritones and some things they can do for us and some amazing fretboard patterns that emerge when you do a little analysis on the tritones. So here we go. The very first thing I need to do is get on my right page here. Okay, we have a but first a shout out, sorry, to Cameron Coffee. His YouTube channel is Cam K Coffee. I'll try to put a link in the description below. Um, this goes along with the lesson I've uploaded just before this one. Should be the one listed somewhere before it if you've got the settings by date or something, whatever. Um, this goes along, or it should be called the 7-3 rail or something like that. That lesson about this goes right along with that, and this is all inspired by a lesson he did, indicating some of the material, or where I got some of my material today. I'm going to expand on what I had learned from his lesson in put it into my context. A comment on his video that somebody left that I thought was really good was that it was when they alluded to the fact that everybody really does approach a lot of these concepts in their own way, um, and sometimes you hear people approaching things in ways you can really grasp, and other times it looks kind of alien, and you wonder, well, why go this way when you can approach it from this way? So Um, in this particular case, this information is incredibly useful. So, but the first thing we need to know for this lesson, starting now, is this mood order of modes. So you could call this a mode order. You can see I craftily crossed that out. And instead of mode order, I'm calling it mood order. What is this mood order? Okay, just as quick as we can to catch up to people that are really lost with modes. Watch my videos, plenty of videos on what modes are, how to make them super easy to understand, apply them to your fretboard, and really fundamentally what they are. There's one where I show it's about playing a chord, more about chords than scales, but I can't get into that now. We got to keep this as concise as possible. So let's say you're caught up on modes and you know what the heck somewhat what's going on. That's all you need to know is a little bit about them. In the major scale, modes come up as there's an order of modes that you will, if you don't know it now, you'll eventually get to it. It's really just a little chunk of information that in the beginning is like, oh, wait, I'm on the 2 chord. That's what? You'll have to think about it at first. Eventually be like, yeah, 2 is minor, 3 is minor, 4 is major, 5 is major, 6 is minor, blah, blah, blah. Then the 7 diminished, blah, blah, blah. You'll know all that stuff just like all these teachers do. It doesn't take long. Um, so, yeah, you can find them in the major scale, yeah. But it doesn't tell you there's no organization to the mood order um, found in the order that they arrive at the major scale or come out through the major scale. Um, but there actually is a very predictable and organizable ordering of modes, and once you categorize them and realize their placement in this little sphere of modes per se, then you go, a lot of these concepts become a lot easier. So here it is, the first defining factor. Okay, maybe let me say first that there's 7 modes to the major scale because there's one from each note. There's 7 notes in a major scale: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Now, how can you divide 7 modes easily. Well, you do it like this. Let's look over here to start with this one to get it out of the way really quick. Everyone will always ask too, well, wait a minute, what about Locrian? Is that the missing secret mode that really sounds great and everyone's trying to hide or something? No, Locrian, find out for yourself. It's based on the one and only diminished chord of the scale. It's got its own unique sound. It deserves a lesson on its own. To make the same type of mood or modal music that comes out of these other 6 leftover scales is much more cohesive and pleasing and understandable than this last mode here has a question mark because it's very enigmatic. It would leave you hanging. It doesn't really have that resolve. It's harder to incorporate um okay, maybe concepts of tension and release, perhaps. Either way, there is some functionality with it as far as leading to the one, just to not dismiss it completely. You want to be clear because everybody comes to try, well, you said this. And so anyways, I'm trying not to drag my explanations out. I'm trying to police myself as I give the lesson, which is another reminder for me to start making scripts for these lessons. But anyways, Locrian, don't worry about it. It's not part of our focus today. Let's just leave it at that for today. Now we know why, and without any mystery, or we're not missing it in any kind of way. Because when you see what happens here, then you're going to go, and you probably already have looked at this while I'm rambling here, and seen that on this side you've got you classify them into 2 categories to start with, major and minor, and that gives us 3 modes per category. But the cool thing is, beyond that, is that in each category, they fall into their own order and it repeats. It's exactly the same in both categories. So let's take a look. We've got at the top here for our major, we have neutral, lighter on the left and darker on the right. There's a reason that I placed them like that. When it comes to numerical chord order, which we'll talk in a bit, it would make more sense to have the 4, then the 1, then the 5 in just in my own thinking. But let's not worry. Nothing to really worry about. Just OCD thing there. But pay attention to neutral in the middle, then darker and lighter. So when it comes to the 3 minor chords, then you have, once again, a darker, a neutral, and a lighter. Now, because of this similarity, there is a relativity between these modes. So you will very often have heard the relative minor scale. Why is it called the relative minor scale? This is why. Because it is a relative to the Ionian, because they're both in the neutral category. Ionian, major. You also, oh, well, Ionian is major. Well, this is why. It's because major is really just one of the modes, and it's the most probably balanced between these concepts of emotion or mood, or a lighter mood or a darker mood. The Ionian and Aeolian scales happen to be the 2 that seem to sit in the middle of their group. So if we want to go, so now we understand that these faces down out in the very beginning, they served a good purpose here, and to me it was all about the eyebrows and the smile. The eyes help you know it's a face, right? The smile tells you, hey, we're in a happy chord here, but look at the emotion of this happy chord. This is just kind of a neutral, hey, I'm happy, I'm Jim, I'm happy, right? And then this one is a kind of happy with a little bit of a devilish kind of happy. There's something going on with that happy there, and that's kind of like Mixolydian. It's got a little bit more of a something to it. But there are multiple ways to interpolate these general descriptions. So like in one way, Mixolydian could be like a jamboree type of song, and another way, a Mixolydian can express a little bit of a different idea, but it's got more weight to it, basically than an Ionian, or a little something to it, um, like a funkiness to it, where you totally go the opposite way and just bring this. And all of these are moving, by the way, one note change. One note changes here, and um, sometimes two. That's not something I know as a fact, but it just as a general, it doesn't really matter anyways. But that's the gist of it. So there's only a one, I believe, but possibly two notes that change to make these scales what they are. It's like, for example, the Lydian is the same as Ionian. The only note different is the fourth is raised, and when you raise notes, you bring a scale into a lighter sound. When you move notes to an empty note on the left, perhaps going down, kind of like the same way a piano keyboard is lower notes on the left, higher notes on the right. When you lower them down, you get darker scales. So same thing with neutral, and these are relationships. Then you've heard. I think I went out on a tangent on the relationships here. Natural minor, natural major, and natural minor, because it's the 1-to-6 relationship. In the same way, Mixolydian is related to Phrygian. It's the polar opposite scale, and it reflects that way on your fretboard when you're thinking in terms of pentatonics and stuff like that. So lighter and darker here are also Dorian and Lydian have a similar relationship, right? And also with chord progressions, this can be useful information. Now, speaking of chord progressions, this number set down here, 362514, keep that in your minds, and let's take a look at where this is coming from. If either of those, if 362 sounded familiar, it's because right down here, underneath these descriptions of these modes, it says 3, 6, and 2, then up here it says 5, 4, and 1, because that's the one chord, or the first note of the scale that makes the chord on 1. So it's called 1. What's the second note of the scale? Dorian. What's the third note? Phrygian. And we know the fourth is Lydian. Let's find Lydian. Oh, then there it says fourth, and we know fifth is Mixolydian, sixth is Aeolian, and back together. And very interestingly, watch this. 1, 2, 3. You've made like part of a triangle. Oh, you go back to here to get to 4, and then 5 and 6. You've sort of made like two interlocking opposing triangles. I don't know. Anyways, just yeah, nothing we need to think about today. So there's 5, 1, 4. Now let's put that in other terms. 4 or 1, 4, 5. You've heard of that before. Oh, 1, 4, 5. And you've heard chord progressions with 3, 6, and 2. You've heard of 2, 5, and 1. Well, interestingly enough, when you stack 3, 6, 2 next to 5, 1, 4, in the center you get 2, 5, 1. And furthermore, if you've researched any other progressions that are common to a few genres of music, I think, beyond some jazz tunes and such, of course, a 6, 2, 5, 1, 4 is common, and a 3, 6, 2, 5, 4 or 2, 5, 1 is possible. And then I'll show you how you can put the 4 even at the end. So anyways, keep that in your mind. So basically we see here associated chords. So this is not only the number note found in the scale, but it's the chord association, also known as the Nashville numbers. Why are they used? Because it makes it easy to do what we're doing here, just by assigning them a quick number versus all these kind of fancy Greek names, which have their purpose for why they're used. But so let's remember 514 in our major category and 362 in our minor category, and that is our order of the mood order of modes. 514 in the major category, 1 is the neutral. It's going to be darker and lighter. And remember, 6 is the neutral, and you have darker and lighter as 3 and 2. Remember that. Sheet number 2. Now, we're going to kind of go away from information that we need to remember for a minute and switch gears into some other cool stuff here that we want to see. But do keep in mind, the 362514. Do you remember that from the last page from 2 seconds ago? All right. Well, look at here. This depiction here is the order of notes on your fretboard as they go down the fret. Why is this important to know? It's a lot of like, okay, remember this, remember that, but why the hell are you going to do this? And I know I never would unless somebody told me, well, why is this important? Well, sometimes, for a couple reasons, you may be thinking in terms of chords instead of linear lines. Like, okay, there's the 1, 2, 3. This must be 4, 5, and so on. You may be thinking, hey, I need a chord here, and I need some volume down so I don't deafen you guys. All right, that's a little better. You may need to think in terms of grabbing intervals down low so you can know, or maybe you're about to improvise and you're on a route and you're like, hey, what's this note down here? I mean, I know generally near here this is going to be my major third. This is my 5. Those are easy intervals to get, but what about when you go get down here? What interval is that? So anyways, if you put your thinking on this is the 1, then what do we have here? The next would be a 4. And then from there would be a black key. And another black key. But what happens and why this doesn't appear on your fretboard is the fact that let's keep in mind the string shift from the G and the B string, which is going to come up throughout all the lessons all the time. That breaks this pattern up and doesn't help it jump out at you. A couple things to keep in mind. So we've got this 3-6-2-5-1-4 pattern. That's totally, I think, amazing right there. In the fact that this pattern that we got right on our guitar is the modal pattern right there. 3, the minors, darker, neutral, lighter, Phrygian. I mean, I could decide this, but it doesn't have to be a 3. But if this was the 3 to my scale, this would be the 6. We know it's minor, so we play it wrong. So 3, Phrygian, Aeolian, Dorian. Then we'd have a 5 just below that, but we're done with room to really play some super tasty chords. So, but that's the gist of it. It's how your fretboard works and how you can know your intervals. As we will kind of be thinking about these intervals as we play. But as I typed this out, I thought, well, it's really neat how the guitar lines up with a piano. So I'll go over some whimsical things here that are little tangents outside this lesson. But not until a couple more takeaways here. 7 and 4. Let's look for this. Let's start to think about what's called a tritone interval. This will get into the next page a little bit. Here's what it sounds like. And there it is. Look at the right here in the white keys. Do we have in the white keys all represent a scale if you're considering the piano, for example. The piano is all the white keys are the C major scale. So if you put your thinking like that all the whole notes are the white keys, then you can put a guitar and a piano, in a diagram, comparison diagram. Now, in the major scale, do we have a tritone anywhere? Well, actually, you have a tritone everywhere, but most of them will. Anytime you have this note and this note together. So, like, for example, this down here in the diagram. In the major scale, you can see we have 7 and 4. Keep that in the back of your mind. Let's move on. these black keys, notice that they run. Now we're in tangent mode. Let's go off on a couple interesting tangents here that I just think are cool and worth mentioning while we're here. We have the black keys stacked up like in a line. So here they are on my fretboard. That would be actually be right here. So in theory, if I detuned my guitars, that's the 11th fret. 12th fret is the octave, all are same as our open strings. If I detune my guitar a half step, aka Van Halen, early Van Halen, right? Um, you would have a guitar matching all the black keys, the open strings, matching all the black keys on the piano. Is that worth anything? I don't know, but it is what would happen. And in that regard, some people say, "Hey, wait, dude, man, guitar has 6 strings, man. There's only 5 black keys. What are you talking about, dude?" Well, let's remember that the E and the E string are redundant duplicates. So the obviously tuning in different octaves, but so there's your 5 with one repeating, uh, the flat 7 there repeating. So all black keys. And the way they stack, I thought was kind of neat. By the way, as you go up the notes here, they shift over in this big square. By the way, you might say, "Oh, that looks like that magic square that you teach about in the other lessons." That's exactly it. This is exactly where it comes from. And we go up there. The black keys repeat like that on the fretboard. So, in other words, if this was my 6, this is a black key. This is my 2. That's a black key. The sharp. This is a 5, sharp 5, 1, flat 2. Oops. Yeah, 1 flat 2, 4, flat 5. That would sharp 5. Yeah. No, 4. 5, 5. Anyways, um, this is how it plays out. So if I made this a 5 on 5, another thing is this helps you kind of know breaking this down into 3 number chunks. If this is my 5, I've got a 1 right underneath it, and then a 4. If I've got this is my 2, I've got a 5 and a 1. If this is my I'm playing on the 7 just before the 1, this is going to be a 3. This is a note would represent the 6. If I make a chord, I'm making a chord based on the 6 of the scale, minor, Aeolian. Associate these numbers with their chord um, status, and that's easy to know because you have a group right there. 3, 6, and 2 is minor. 5, 1, and 4 are major, and in your natural, or in your and the modal names. So 1 Ionian, 2 Dorian, 3 Phrygian, 4 Lydian, 5 Mixolydian, blah, become a robot about music theory, nerds. Sorry. Let's move on. All right. So there's the major scale in gray. And C is our example. And there's our tritone interval we've been explaining. Sounds terrible. That explains the colors. Purpley root with an oddball orange note, probably the most oddball note you could find in the whole scale. It's why it's used many times in alarms and sirens as warnings. It's the most like striking and unusual and maybe perhaps unpleasant interval, um, but not always unpleasant. Um, and so we know what a tritone is, let's say. So I use that's the sound. It splits the octave in half. is why it's particularly useful as a navigation tool, because you're finding you have a way of dividing this, somewhat cumbersome group of 12 notes to know into just six. And it's the only interval as well that plays the same interval no matter which way you go from the root, as long as it's obviously that direction. So we always go at an angle here. It's one string down, one fret over. One of the most even moves you can make, one string, one fret. Now, just as a little side note here, if we go from the root, we make this our root. What is that, a B note? If I go play a major third, and then I move in the opposite direction of the major third, just much like basically the opposite of this flat five, it becomes a different interval. Now, even though sonically you could consider that root major third, and then you could consider this root major third, two different. However, going backwards, you get the polar opposites of a third by getting a sixth. Now, you could. I know this will be just extra to some people, and I'm sorry, but it's an interesting analogy some people might grasp onto. If you had a series of dollar bills lined up in a table, um, and you cut each dollar bill exactly in half, then you would have exactly um, a trail, a line of exactly cut dollar bills, every piece being the same. But if I took that dollar bill and I cut it just off center, and I cut every one the same exact way off center, then you would have big brick, small brick, big brick, small brick, big brick, small brick. So that same thing happens when you divide the interval. Instead of exactly in half, cut it a little short of half or a little over half. So if you whatever you cut a little short, you're going to have over on the next piece. So you'll still have the same amount of dollar bill paper, but the sizes will be different if you don't divide them exactly in half. So that's why you get different size intervals, a 6 or a sharp 5, or a different functioning major third. Okay, so that's why the tritone is one thing about its structure that makes it somewhat unusual and interesting compared to other intervals and such. So, enough about the sound and the colors. On your fretboard, it's obviously, we talked about one fret over, one fret down, and the major scale. Now, does the major scale have a tritone in it? Well, we saw in the listing on the last page that it sure indeed does. If these are all the white notes, and then then you're going to have, well, you can have a tritone anywhere. You can have a tritone from a black key to a white key, a black key to a white key, a black key to a white key, a black key to a white key. So out of scale, in scale, out of scale, in scale, or in its own scale, whatever. The one contained within the major scale is 7 and 4. Let's take a look. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Did you see the interval shape anywhere in this? Oh, you saw the question marks next to the 4 and 7? Very good. You have the tritone there. Now, here is the magic. Okay. This right here, I have listed F and B. In C, this is the tritone, is the note F and the note B, the fourth note and the seventh note of the scale. And this tritone interval found in the major scale does something really cool. When it comes to these modes, like I explained earlier, hopefully you remember, that they're only divided by one or maybe two notes, or they're kind of distinct they they make their distinctive sounds based on only changing one or two notes from the original scale. So like um, major, Lydian. So once again, Ionian, as part of Lydian. One note makes it different. And that just happens to be one of the tritone notes. Um, in my example here, I went in a parallel or whatever I did to. Anyways, don't worry about it. I used the same root note, so I was in a different key, but that will confuse people and lead to another hour of explanations on one end. We're not going down that tangent. We are sticking with this. We've got the tritone, and that is the unique character notes for every mode. So, for example, if we just played this 4 and 7, and this would work for any scale, slide this up the fretboard. We're starting on E. There's our tritone. And you can determine there what's our tritone in E. Our character notes for every mode are going to be A, and using my octave I, D sharp or E flat, A, E flat. If you spell out the whole scale, you can know if it's supposed to be called the sharp or flat. I'm not going to worry about that today. Um, so yeah, the really cool thing is, and if that's the case, the really cool thing is that these two notes will are the tones that are character in all of the modes. How can that even be? It didn't even sound possible at first, but when I researched it, it was true. So we used the desired root for the desired mood, referred back to the mood order. Okay, so if I want like let's say a little bit of a lighter, I want my song is kind of sad, but there's kind of light at the end of the tunnel. And boy, I just thought Aeolian didn't sound right for it. Is there something a little brighter? Well, yeah, the brighter than Aeolian was the 2. The 3 was darker, the 2 was lighter, 3, 6, 2. So I want to look for a 2. Here's my 2. It's going to be in the key of C. It's going to be the note D. So if I play a D and comp these other 2 notes with it to make a chord of a 1. Now that's not a 147. That's now compared to this 4 and 7 comes as a comparison to our root note 1, the major scale 1C. But now we're dealing with the 2. If I want to switch that in my thinking to my root, which would be therefore my 1, then this in relationship to this new 1, this is going to be a minor third. Do I think of a big calculation? Do I juggle all these numbers around in my mind to know that? No. I just know the shape on my fretboard. I know that this interval shape is always going to be these shapes are one cool thing is they're always constant. They don't change even though the notes inside the shapes can change. The shape itself will always be minor third, major third, root and 4, root and tritone, root and 5, root and sharp 5, root and 6, 7, and I'm not going to stretch anymore. Okay, so we got a minor and a 7. So if we comp that, sounds like a train horn a little bit. All right, so let's say I wanted the 3 instead. Does that it could get a little harder to fret that note right way over there? So we can remember you can adjust these around. I could play the 3 over here and play the 4 and 7 down here. I could play. Now, if that sounds a little jarring and crazy, well, so does Phrygian. Just trying some improv ideas because obviously this doesn't really sound, that great. Maybe you want to lower the notes for the 4 and the 7 there, and try maybe you could even play this fingering. Um, yeah. So there's plenty of things you can do to rearrange fingerings to try to make these comparable. But one thing to know is like you've also found target notes. If I was playing in Phrygian, I might be thinking of. In that particular under that particular chord, 7 sounded like an answer, and 4 sounded like a call. Or I'm sorry, like a I was thinking call and response and answer and question. So 4 sounds more like a question note. And then the answer. The question, the answer. So I'm gonna let you guys though. Now you guys mess around with the staying diatonic, meaning this approach that I'm showing right now is the first is level number 1. Understanding how you could elucidate, turn one key into um, any mode of that key. Um, you might use this to, you know, especially if your thinking is coming from one key. So I'm like, all right, well today we're playing in the I need a we're playing a 5 chord, but it's weird. It's in the key of B. So it's in B flat. Let's make it a little bit more usable. D sharp. Well, that's a weird one. So what would I be doing then? Well, pretty easy. I could find that pretty easy. I would just know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my 5. Here's my character notes and my 5. Now, I'm going to show you in a little bit how, and then there's another way of looking at this that can allow you to instantly turn this into a scale. Right now, I have to think about it a little bit. What would my scale be? But those are the characters for 5. I put my root from 5 here. First of all, I converted it down to a 6-string root. That allows me better access to that 4 and 7. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's my jazz grip, which is really part of this bigger, larger um, chord. So moving on from there, because boy, we do have a lot of sheets to get through. So we already went through this. I moved the tritone down, but we slid the pattern way up, just to show you. You can any one of these tones will suggest the mode. And remember, like, so you're like, well, what would I do? Like, that's not a chord. I wouldn't really maybe comp with that. Well, you would comp with this chord here. But you've unlocked a lot of information with pretty simply that these are going to be your character notes, probably your most important notes of when you're playing Mixolydian and you're and I should also point out one thing I didn't make a page on is the fact that your treatment of this tritone to actually a few seconds ago I said there is another way to totally know where your notes are, where your scale notes are once you found this tritone. Now, there's really only two options from that tritone. Number one, let's say I found, for whatever reason, my scale had my tritone here. There's only two options. I'm either surrounding that, putting it into the square, so would be once I got my square there, I'm either playing ahead of my square because that's the major scale pattern, or I'm playing behind it. In both of those shapes, I know this as my Phrygian scale shape. This is my Dorian scale shape. And that's all because I knew where my square was based on the tritone. But it's not always that simple. Sometimes that tritone is in between two squares, but what that ends up looking like is the gut notes, if you've watched my previous lesson, the gut notes of the Aeolian pattern, meaning that from here, I would not surround it with a square per se. The square would be shifted up on, I'd be playing the top of the square on the E string here, there's my tritone on frets 9 and 10. So I would be here. Once again, within the realm of a pentatonic shape is where all these exist. And you're going to see this coming up, but those are the only two options. You either square it or make it Aeolian. I guess that's what we'll call it. Square it or make it Aeolian. Those are your only two options. So if one doesn't work, guess what? The other one will. All right, moving on down the road. So now we know that, like for say 5 here is going to be Mixolydian. Well, now let's ask ourselves this. Remember that guitar is full of patterns, and this thing is full of amazing patterns that do crazy things that you wouldn't expect geometry to be able to do. Now, remember that 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, 4, how handy it is going up knowing our frets or our intervals up and down from wherever we are. And like if someone said 5, I'm on a 5. If I know my note is a 5, all I got to think about is 1 and 4. Those are going to be the neighbors. Which one is next? Or 2 and 5 actually. 2 is before because I know 5 is at the edge. And I know 1 and 4 are below. If someone said that I'm on a 3, then I would know that there's a 6 and 2 just below that, or above it's going to be 1 and 4. Or actually, the 7 is somewhere there. Oh, and you know what I never did? I never played my. Let's check out chord progressions 362 while we're talking about it. So let's say this was my 1. Nice G major scale. 3, 6, to the 5. Oh, I'm sorry, to the 2. 2, which is going to the 5. Goes to the 1, the 4, the 1. And I did a little trick in there. I took the 4 and made it minor for that extra tension because that works right there. It's an interesting trick that works with its own basket of theory if you want to try to explain why it works. But nothing to worry about. Just go with it. Anyways, nice walking across the diatonic chords and using all the diatonic chords, by the way, to get to the 1. And we've left out the 4, but we can play that as a piece. Kind of makes its own like bridge or chorus or whatever, even a verse, and then we even got the some working bits of diminished in there. Using all 7 notes of the progression. So pretty cool. This 362514 is very powerful and something you should remember. Um, so what if this 362514 could still help us and created a super amazingly easy geometry on the fretboard? Could it be true? Well, guess what? If G Mixolydian is 5, let's think about this. If this is 5, and we know typically on the guitar what follows 5? A 1. What follows the 1? A 4. What follows the 4? A 3, then a 6, then a 2. Could it be that this interval basically should work like G Mixolydian, G Ionian, move your tritone another half step forward, and you would have G Lydian. Sounds right. I was trying to make the modal sound pop a little bit better out of there to kind of hear a sonic connection a little stronger. It was a little ambiguous to me, but there it is, though. If this is that should be true, and it kind of holds true for for Lydian. Sounds right. If this is Ionian, then well, how does that work? Um, Okay, sorry. I don't know why I got so confused there, but it's I was like, wait a minute, am I sure about myself? But yeah, I mean, I went over this 8 million times, um, and then I was just having trouble fitting all the geometry in my head, but because I was starting on a different note than expected. But anyways, so it's true. So considering our G root, just think about it like this. Put letter your tritones then. This is your M tritone for Mixolydian. This is your I tritone for Ionian and your L tritone for Lydian, or 5, 1, 4. And I guess that's kind of right. I mean, here, this sounds kind of, something is wonky about it. It sounds drunk. This one sounds all combed and handsome. Everything's ringing out together, fancy. And this one sounds like it's reaching up toward the sky. I'm trying to lift up. All right. So that's pretty amazing right there. Now, but here's the thing. If this is true, shouldn't minor also, if the 514 is there, is 362 right, like next to this, totally accessible, as easy as sliding up a half step? Like, who would have thought? I mean, these um like, for example, G Mixolydian and G Ionian are two different um scale systems. G Mixolydian is from the C major scale. G Ionian is G major, right? These are half a world apart. As far as scales go, how can they be so closely related on the fretboard? But it turns out that they are. So check this out. Now I've gone away from the original tritone color to group the tritones as gray and blue. Eventually, these gray ones will turn green because we start using gray to show our scale patterns. But that's coming up in a second. So check this out. This is as crazy as it comes. There's the 2 chord. Here is the 6 chord. And here is 3 Phrygian, darker. Like, I can hear those intervals in a very tense part of a scary movie where you don't know what's around the next corner, or getting followed by the ghost. Now here's a little bit more lame. Sounds a little bit, doesn't sound happy, but sounds like it's basically neutral. It's got some things happening, but they're all kind of expected. And they're serious. They're not happy. Alien. Now here, that sounds happier to me. Um, Quite a weird interval there. Definitely comparable. Now there's an example of of something kind of jumping outside of standard music theory. That's why music theory isn't rules, because this is not diatonic, but it sounds pretty cool. It sounds like something I've probably heard a million times in some kind of songs. Now it's sharing the same root, so this is the same chord. I'm just playing a dominant seventh version that we went over these shapes and their names in our last lesson to a minor six. So I'm insinuating, but now we know why. One of the reasons that this could be working, I'm insinuating a five, then a two chord. Let's go two, but now this is the not the two chord that would follow like as if it was we were moving through one scale, because then the root notes would be changing. This here we're changing the same root notes, so it's a G5, and a G2. So the two chord, it would have to be part of it would be the two in a scale. The one would be the note before it, F. So this is in the key of F. And then we're going to the key of, oh, if this was G, now we're in B, so I'm in the key of A and E. E and A. Okay, moving on. So notice what I did there, by the way. I made a mistake in my playing and I caught it quick. So what I did was I didn't know off the top of my head which choice I had here versus what we talked about earlier. I wanted some scale tones, right? After playing this, but I'm like, oh, geez, I forgot. Is this where you circle the, or you basically square the tritone where we go, but you can say, no, no, that sounds like garbage. So if that doesn't work, then this is the Aeolian gut note. So I'm going to turn this into my Aeolian shape. You see, those are all the sweet notes. All right, so yeah, this really's got some cool comping and soloing potential. And you've heard these jazzers. I mean, I remember getting lessons where people were trying to tell me, "Hey, man, that tritone. This is what you do with that tritone." They probably showed me this, and I was just like, "Oh, what? I don't make no sense. How the hell can that be real?" Well, fuck that. I think I'll remember it and see what happens. And didn't realize that it really was key to what I was actually trying to accomplish. So here we've switched everything to its Greek names. So where we were at the number names. So this is how you want to remember this. You know, make the associations 514, 362. Easy to remember the numbers because we've just got those three little groups that go with six. And um, yeah, there's a whole bunch of ways you can try to, if you need to, ways to remember these numbers. There's just all kinds of little associations you can make, but we're not going to go there. MILPAD, it's $1 million pad. If you make a ton of money with music, maybe you can afford yourself $1 million pad, right? So, if you need a mnemonic way, I think that's what it's called to remember these. But PAD, MIL, Mixolydian, Ionian, Lydian, um, Pythagorean. No, I know. Phrygian, Aeolian, Dorian. Now, you might also ask, oh, wait a minute, Monarch, where is Locrian? Now, um, one thing I didn't mention earlier is there is a, maybe the big theory buffs would have been like, hey, dude, we were talking about these are the defining notes. Well, this one here on Phrygian, that could be Lydian, or that could be Locrian too. And you're right, because between Phrygian and Locrian, you need two notes to distinguish. You need one other note to distinguish which actual one you're playing. However, it's going to make these scales pretty clear which one you're actually playing. Now, granted, you're not in a vacuum. You're playing with other instrumentalists who are, you know, if other notes are going on at the same time, there's a good chance when you play this, if you were to play in three, it's not extremely common, and you're only there for usually a few bars anyways. But in that time, you're going to other instrumentalists, what the bassist does, whatever, that's going to spell out one or the other. And the sounds are distinct enough where you're not going to mistake one for the other. So don't worry about your um, that uh, vagueness at all. That this doesn't perfectly outline Phrygian between Phrygian and Locrian. Consider it as an opportunity to perhaps go from Phrygian in some way, shape, or form. I mean, it's up to you. You can design these changes to work. If you're crafty enough, you could design it so your composed piece of music. I don't know what it would be trying to do or where you're trying to go, but in theory, you could take this move into the three chord, but turn it into a seven chord that is resolving a half step above to, in effect, change to a new key. Um, Move to a new key in somewhat of a deceptive way without any abrupt changing or, so to speak, or to sound like you're perhaps logically getting to a new key center, tonal center. So, um, amongst many ways to switch keys using little chord tricks and deceptive ways of getting there without just abruptly doing something that's obvious to the listener. Um, this is one of them. Some other thing I wanted to say is if you look at these notes and analyze it for yourself, you can kind of see what's going on. So let's take, for example, this Mixolydian. We've got the root. Here we are on C. And then we've got, so we would have the F and the B. Here's the B and the F. Oh, that's the, okay, sorry. Let's go to G Mixolydian. Then we'd have the B and the F. We're C and blah, 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 blah. So anyways, the G is the 5 of C. I was just looking for some easy tritone notes to grab. This exemplifies the flat third. This note here is the major third. So once we've got a root note, and we've applied a flatted seventh against it. Now, what that did was eliminate Ionian, and it eliminated Lydian, because both of those have a raised seventh, but we still have all three minor chords as a possibility, and Mixolydian major as a possibility when we have just these two as an interval. So we need one more interval. Is that going to be the tritone? Well, I think it is, because that tritone is the major third. So now that precludes all the minor scales. It can't be a minor scale. It's got a major third. And that's how these two notes can I single out Mixolydian as the choice of where this chord is coming from. If I play up here, now I'm playing the well, let's say I went to C Ionian. Once again, I've got the F and B down here. And B, F. So I've got the F and B, and There's an F and B in here. Oh my God. No, sorry. Thought someone said there was an F and B. um, so we've got the F and B here, damn it. And um, that's going to identify that we've got the seventh of the scale right here, the major seventh. So that now precludes all the minor scales because they all have flatted sevenths. It precludes Mixolydian because that has a flatted seventh. So this leaves the possibility of um, Ionian or Lydian. And we solve that with this note because the only note that's the only scale between those two that's going to have a regular 4 is the Ionian. So now here, when I move up to this Lydian suggestion, it suggests Lydian because now I have the raised fourth. And the last one is the root. Now, there can be some. It's this one that I think, well, it's just the root. A root with a raised fourth. Okay, so also that's the same thing here with Lydian at this end. This can also be confused with um, a Locrian because Locrian also has a root, obviously, and it has a flatted fifth, which is enharmonically the same as a raised fourth, but it's working differently in that scale or in that chord or whatever, and called differently because it's operating as a 5 that's been lowered. This is operating as a 4 that's been raised because of the consecutive steps in the scale. And that won't make sense to beginners, but that is the reason. The part about steps, because 1, 2, 3, 4, you've raised the 4. The Locrian has a 4, and now you're going to the 5, but you're only stepping a half step into the flat 5. So the Locrian has a 4 and a raised 4, and to look at it in Lydian terms, and that's why. So, but once again, the Locrian sound is so much different than the Lydian sound. As soon as there's a major third anywhere else in the music, that's going to elucidate that as Lydian, and that is easy to clash with the raised fourth. If you had them ringing out at the same time, there's a little bit of a clash. You've got a whole step interval in there. You've got a step interval in there, and steps are a little crowded sonically. So, okay, moving on. Doesn't mean anything really if you like that sound and it works in your progression. I think it's got an ice cold chilling effect. Add some kind of chilling power to that chord. All right, now let's get to making soloing easier. Bye. And look at something, just how this geometry just keeps on getting more amazing. Before I show you this, one last thing to add to the amazing pile. You might say, well, okay, so this is cool. What happens after this? Not that I'm ever going to be able to stretch and play those notes, but theoretically, what are all the rest of the notes here? Could it be that since there's basically, only 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, 4, and then it repeats, does this repeat? And lo and behold, believe it or not, consider this. Here is a tritone run on the fretboard. We're going to start at the note G and we're going to work down. Now I'm at the end of the road here at the bottom string. If I want to continue my tritones up to the octave point of G, up here I go straight up the fretboard to the top, the copycat E note. So I know I'm still on a tritone, the same tritone note I was, And if that's the case, there must be another row of tritones there, and there is. And sure enough, I land on the octave up G. So what that means is that every skip the 2s, skip the 3s, skip the 4, and the next note up is that flat 5. That means that these reverse every 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frets. So if I hit this, I'm on the 3rd fret here. I take that note and I count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's the same exact set of notes, they're just flip-flopped on top of each other. So, oh yeah. I was like, why am I landing on F? Because that particular one I chose, because I was relating it to G, because that's part of the G mixolydian I'm so familiar with. It's where I'm most used to playing that tritone with a root. That actually is F and B. So F and B and F and B. So anyways, this P is right here, just reversed. So you have PAD again, with the notes upside down. MIL, PAD, MIL, PAD. It just goes all the way up these strings here. Well, what if we want to move it to, I want to be able to solo, turn this into a technique where I can jump into my scale shapes and know the whole fretboard instantly. So I'd rather have this up on the B and E string pair. So what magic or, big thought process do I have to do that? And the answer is almost nothing. This is crazy. Here you go. You'll see here the takeaway is that the only thing that's changed is that they've reversed. Oh yeah. Notice this too, that the center line, the dividing between major and minor, occurs exactly on the same fret as the roots. How convenient is this, right? So we've got your major 5, 1, 4 there, and if I don't even have to think about, oh wait, where's the tritone for the minor? Just start right down here, but use your lower note for minor, and you're there, and there. Both minor and major hitting that center note underneath the root. Well, check out what happens when we want to switch it to the other string. It does the same thing again. How can this be? Now, for my own thinking, I'd rather have it so major was in front and minor was behind, but that's not how it is, so I'll deal with it. But let's get rid of this one here and move our root up so we got a little bit more playground here to kind of visualize. And we'll do that next. But just so finally notice though how the 362 Phrygian, Aeolian, Dorian is on the right hand side, and Milpad or Mill or 514 is on the right. Pretty cool. Okay, so moving to the next sheet, we've got a couple more sheets to go here. How many do we got? Oh Lord. Okay, so we go from the G to the C root here. From the 8th fret of the low E string is where we are now. Just to keep up the C note, because boy, C is so easy. So how can we turn this into easy peasy soloing technique? So okay, we have our tritone shapes on the lower B and E string. Let's basically start with all the way at the edge there with C Dorian. Now remember earlier we talked about enclosing this tritone shape with a square, or even here. or the other method of using it as the gut notes for aeolian. That'll become clear in a couple more diagrams. So we're going to go with, all we need to do is figure out which one is which. And the neat thing is, what we're going to do here, or what we find out with the patterns that um, come from this string set, putting these tritones on this string set, make it super geometric and super easy to remember. And pad works exactly like mill. They both are the exact same idea set. So there's barely anything to remember here, which I think is the greatest thing about thinking in this, using this as a tool, is just because it organizes everything for super quick mental access. That's all I really do on this channel, is I find ways to break information into just not bits but bytes, the very smallest chunks, that so I can pull those quick from the data banks. All right, so moving down here now, so everything just kind of went wacky there, but take a look at where R and the D for Dorian is. We don't need to think about any of this stuff. If someone said, hey, this is C Dorian, I could jump into this, and I could jump from C Dorian into C Aeolian to C Phrygian to C Lydian to C Ionian and C Mixolydian in a half second, but just by doing this. Anyways, so Dorian. I'm taking Dorian and I'm going to enclose Dorian, and here's why. For my minor, for my 362, for the pad, PAD, I'm going to consider a pentatonic box as a framework. An easy to grasp, quick to populate the fretboard idea with notes, pentatonic. I'm also going to do that for major when we move this pentatonic idea down, but that's coming up. So what I'm going to think here, if somebody just, for some reason the idea was Dorian, boom, I'm there. This is what I think. I'm there just like this. My character notes are here. I'm in C. My character notes are here. Been comping with this. Anyways, I can be all over the fretboard instantly because I know a whole bunch of things that pop into my mind here. You'll have to, hopefully you've been through this my channel here and all my lessons, and you know that, oh my gosh, there's the square. We know we're in our Dorian shape, and our square is there, our square is there, our square is there. Contains 4 of the 7 notes that we need. And that, this leads me into, I'm still in what I would consider Dorian, or halfway in between Dorian and Aeolian. Here, when I'm in this square, my mind shifts to this Aeolian pattern. When I'm out of there and thinking about this square, I might move up into this square. I'm into this Phrygian shape here, and then I'm back to Dorian, blah, blah, blah. We know all that. So the Dorian in the darker gray, um, as the complete Dorian scale, but I would rather use the entire fretboard in my um, paint box of Sonic, my Sonic paint box there. All right, so Dorian is in the darker gray. The pentatonic box shapes outlined in purple, so you can see, yes, I got a little purple framework around what should be being, background perceived as the pentatonic box. And the lighter gray for moving around Facebook. Oh, fretboard, yeah, fretboard, not that other place. So the 6 and the flat third are the character notes, maybe perhaps something you think about on strong beats. Doesn't have to be that way. You will experiment with that. But I think this thinking, especially if you just consider the actual third and seventh of the chord. So that this, oh well, that is the third and seventh, by the way. Ha ha ha, because the seventh identifies it as a minor, and the minor or the yeah, and the minor third identifies it as not Mixolydian and as Dorian. No, 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 no. Sorry, that's wrong. The this has got the raised sixth for Dorian, but there's a major scale that might have a raised six, so it's got the flatted seven. But you might want to include the third in your considering of notes to land on for improv, because one thing I've heard when it comes to jazz improv, it's basically, I guess this would be in the most extremely loose form of jazz, is that as long as you can really put the threes and sevens on the strong beats, meaning basically one and three and maybe two and four, I don't know enough to say otherwise, but for sure one and three, then you can almost go and play almost anything in between. And that's where some of them funky notes come from, or some of that outside playing comes from. But perhaps those, you got to study it a little bit more. Those players you're not just like you're scribbling outside the lines. You're probably doing things like arpeggio ideas that come from other theory concepts and stuff like that. Like playing our, just saw one the other day. It was playing arpeggios based on tritone once again, intervals, and I got to see what was on about that tomorrow. But let's move on here. So but whatever it is, when you're improvising, think about question and answer tone. So now that you've got this under your fingers, oops, sorry. That sounds almost like an answer note to me. You come up with these for yourself, and this sounds more like a question note here. Usually, I find that one of these character with this little tritone character identification, one of them turns into somewhat of an answer, and one of them is more of a question note, like you would use as a step or somewhere to go before you get to ending a phrase with an answer note. Just loosely speaking there. So Aeolian. Now in the middle here is when you do this Aeolian shape, and of course you're like thinking, well, I guess that makes total sense. It is Aeolian. We are actually playing Aeolian, so wouldn't we need the Aeolian shape? And as a matter of fact, you might even think like I did. Oh, well, wait a minute. I already kind of knew this. This is minor pentatonic. That's the minor root. Dorian, Aeolian, Phrygian. Yeah, so it's the same, really the same exact thing. Just didn't realize that they were all so close to each other. And it also works like this. Another advantage to this method is that once you start being able to really identify, you basically here you're identifying two of the notes as character notes to your mode here that you're playing in. And that can even help you know, okay, well, if this is the one and we're playing the three, no, this is a sharp five or a flatted six as our character note, of course, would be. And this is our two. Um, Why is Aeolian playing a 2 as a character note? I'm sure there's a reason for this. I mean, after all, they'll all have a 2. Okay, I got it. Because you're playing the sharp 5. And one of these other modes will have. What other mode has a sharp 5 in it? Um, Phrygian. So, wow, that's a character note of Aeolian. Oh, yeah, duh. I can't believe I didn't just see this. I had to think about it. But, anyways, once you're playing this character note of Aeolian, it could be this note where the plus sign is, could be the other note, which means it's Phrygian. So you're playing this note to distinguish this as Aeolian instead of Phrygian. And with that, you've eliminated all the other scale possibilities it could be. Now, perhaps these aren't the juiciest. Maybe your chord tones are going to be, but those are generic. Remember, chord tones are generic. This chord tone, minor chord tone. Let's move back up to C here. It's going to be generic to um, Dorian, Phrygian, and Aeolian. But these character notes are what makes it. That was Phrygian. But if I go. So you can maintain some ambiguity by playing a pentatonic that you allow yourself room to go in different directions if you choose to not play one of the play a pentatonic with the addition of one of the character notes but not both. That leaves you, like, basically in this case you could leave yourself the opportunity, if you just played this character note, you could be going from Aeolian to Phrygian, or from a 6 chord this could become a 3 chord, and then you have the, let's say you were playing a song where you got here based on a 6 chord, playing an Aeolian. Well, as long as you avoid this note, you could theoretically turn this into a Phrygian and be playing a 3 chord, and then you have available to you all the direction of all the chords that are available in this key with that this 3 chord is coming from. Closely, surely a closely related key. None of these moves will get you, I don't think, to any really majorly distant keys. Meaning that there's only 3 keys that are really far away. That's a funny thing. One would be being the tritone. Away is shares only 2 notes, and a half step shares only 2 notes, but 3 note is a little far. Then you have your 4 note scales, which are definitely starting to get, so you'll recognize those as somewhat common. Your 5 note scales are the keys that share 5 notes with each other, common chord changes, and 6 note scales. Amongst, I mean, you can even, use this stuff to get to harmonic minor and melodic minor, and there's just so many things. But anyways, um, Phrygian, same thing. Move your tritone down. And you got your square. And you can hear that making a square out of those notes just sounds congruent. Even though that just sounds kind of awful. But I'm definitely suggesting to you, the listener, that this is the expectation there would be start jamming a Phrygian scale. So, yeah, that's how that works to connect these, modal comping with modal scales. Boom, here you go. And now we get to major. So, we're done with minor. Let's switch to major, moving downward to C Lydian. I should be reading these. This is my concept here was I put down here what I wanted to speak about this board, and then the next page is going to be right here, in case you were wondering. And right here, this has been happening too. You notice that we're on the 6 of 362. We did 2. We're on the 6. The Phrygian, we're on the 3, the darker. And notice the colors went lighter and darker. I don't even think I said that, but you probably noticed. So let's go to major. So notice that now we're the same root is there that we were just on. You can see same and same, but everything shifts because we've got the we're considering our pentatonic box now down here or toward the headstock. But I just think of it, we're just playing. Here's our root note. Here's our shape, and we're more over the next shape over. But we're playing in this out of this. All our ideas are coming out of this basic original box here. So we have this Locrian. I'm sorry, Lydian. So this is a cool sound. I played down my Phrygian shape there, but once again, it's the same thing. Once you plug in your master shape there, now you know, okay, we've got a Dorian box happening in our major, in our consideration box here, and then that leads us to what we know for the rest of the fretboard. Pretty easy. Let's move on. And by the way, you can see where those black keys would fit in there. There's the row of black keys plus the redundant note, same as the top there. There it is. If you're wondering where that would fit into the guitar, I guess it fits in two places. As a matter of fact, this is not the place because this would have a note right there. It should have a gray note there. But the it's right here. As a matter of fact, it's in between Dorian as all your black keys. But anyways, only 2 more sheets left, so I will be letting you guys go soon. In case you're, if for all the people who have held on this far and are holding your breath for me to get the hell done here. Aeolian, we went from the 4 to the 1 here. And of course, so that's 1. Major uses that, and let's see the relatives are using the same scale. Like we said earlier, the 4 and the 2, they're both using this Dorian shape. The Aeolian and Ionian are both using this shape. They're relative scales. They're just in a different position on the fretboard. And so this is our C root here. Now, maybe if those don't sound that great for comping, you can move it back up here. You see I've got some of the other places you can grab these grips right up here. And going on from there, from Ionian, you've got lastly Mixolydian, Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon. You've got this grip here. this little backwards D shape here, which is also the same as moving that tritone down one string set and going, add in your 5 for your jazz grip. So where would your scale be? I played a wrong note, then I played a real wrong note. The first wrong note was a gimmick. The major 3, since we're playing this chord, especially this 5, can really handle lots of funky stuff. And once you know where your intervals are, then you can really, you know, sliding from the minor third into the major third, which is really a common trick used with the dominant chords. So see, I could step over my wrong note because I'm traveling to a strong note, especially a character note of that mode. To the root to finish off. And finishing off that brings us to the finish of this lesson. Finally, another probably hour-long lesson. And uh, one other thing to consider, as this is another way to modulate here. I wrote that as a note for myself for this screen, but I mean, yeah, this could be used as a second. Now you're in Mixolydian, so this could be a secondary dominant. There's just all kinds of ways to modulate. Um, and I had a kind of a probably a slick one when I was writing this, but it escapes me now. So I'll leave that as the end of the lesson, and I thank you guys for watching now. For those who did follow along, if you liked this lesson and you thought, oh my gosh, this was really cool stuff, thought it was basically as amazing as I did, hopefully I conveyed it in a way that was interesting and kept you interested, um, then consider a simple pressing the like button, pressing the subscribe button for sure, so I can know, hey, this is a growing channel. And the more it grows, the more YouTube will promote it as a growing channel. So that would be awesome if you guys could smash that like button, as everybody says, or the subscribe button. And then, of course, you hit notifications so you know when I'm throwing these lessons up there, which are hopefully every week, but not always. And they can get more frequent if you could even spare to buy me a coffee, which is the link that I'll put in the description below. Why this is important? Because when I bring this content to you, sometimes I took a better part of 8 hours to set all these sheets up. That's a day of work that I dedicated for this, and probably what somebody locally would have paid a measly $30 to pack into a 45-minute lesson. So if you thought this was worth a monthly lesson, now it's not as valuable as an in-person lesson because you can't ask me any questions, and I just keep on blabbing on here about whatever. You get to pause the screen. You can't pause me on a live lesson, but either way, and you get to watch it over and over. Can't take a in-person lesson over and over, but let's say you bought a coffee, so you theoretically paid what do they charge you at that site? I don't even know. What's the smallest donation is probably like $5 or something, and $3. Well, you know, for the price of a coffee at the store, instead of going to pay a $30 lesson, you got a value. And I could, at this moment, things are troublesome in the mind's eye visual guitar method um, household. There is a hesitation right now, a pause between me and working. Um, and health issues are creeping up, and things are closing in quickly. And I could use a little bit of, I could use all the support I could get. Let's put it that way. I know you could use all the support you could get. We all could use all the support we could get because we're all dealing with the way things are. They have been lately. In the least in my economy, which is USA, you've probably maybe understood from the accent or the language here. So yeah, I'm sure wherever you're from out there in watch video land, you're struggling too. So, you know, if you just go away from this video and you're sailing on to better videos and other things, that's fine too. I mean, I just do this for, I think it's cool. And I love to share this stuff, as do most of these YouTube guitar teachers. But um the there's always a pitch on these channels. You got to find some way to ask for your help, and this is me doing that. Um, but yeah, there's just a big need to get really not on my feet right now. This studio, this is not even in a studio per se. It's very makeshift where I am right now. The Harmony van, let's just say the Harmony van is rocking, and it's a cool place to be, but not perfect for the ultimate in existence. Let's just say I'm not looking for the ultimate existence, but I need to become more of a regular human being, if you know what I mean. So, um, if you could spare to buy a coffee, that would be awesome. In consideration for that, you thought, this lesson was, wow, that's some amazing information. If you didn't think that, well, then, hey, that's okay too. This isn't for everybody. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. We're going to see you on the next lesson. And also, throw in some comments. I had a comment the other day that probably maybe somebody hesitated to leave it because, might come across as edgy. And it sort of did to me. I sort of looked at it like, it was like, quit doing this. And I was just like, and that's probably not what they wrote, but that's what it kind of came off as. And maybe if you're thinking, oh, I don't want to be that guy, well, but maybe it's not so bad because he got me to wake up and switch my camera over. So now we're looking at the sport a little more logically, like you would be if you were sitting across from me at a lesson. I don't know why I was playing left-handed before and not catching that on screen. So, yeah, leave your suggestions. So that helps the channel grow too. And just geek out on some music theory in the comments. That would be really cool. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you on the next lesson. Have a great day.